Keevin is the CEO of Multiple, and he's going to give us a 10-minute.
I think it'll be less than 10. I was trying to be pretty strict on myself to not go over the time limit.
That's
Um,
good. We
yeah,
love we love those kinds of speakers, Keevin.
I do too. Let me share my screen here. Well, hey everybody, my name is Keevin. As Yuli said, I run Multiple, which is a startup accelerator specifically for autism tech. And so I'm super excited to be here. This is just hyper relevant to what we do. I like to set expectations up front when I do these talks. So in the next, call it 8 minutes, you're going to hear me talk about a snapshot of where autism tech is today from like a landscape perspective, and get a look at where we're seeing some trends and where the next opportunities are kind of in the space. Um, I also like to just kind of get this out of the way too. This is going to be the slide where I brag on myself just a tiny bit, so you know why you should listen to me and really care what I have to say. I mentioned Multiple is the only startup accelerator really focused on autism tech in the space. That's our lane full time. I'm going to assume most people in the audience know what a startup accelerator is, but if you don't, the like kind of TLDR on it is basically it's like a boot camp where we take early stage companies, in the autism tech space, connect them with funders, mentors, just a network of resources so they can move faster and avoid dumb mistakes when they're starting out. The second reason that you should listen is because we do really have a bird's eye view of the market. We've accelerated more than 40 companies. They've gone on to raise about 30 million, and we have a pretty robust database where we're tracking, 600 companies, investors, buyers of autism tech, all in this space. So the point is that we see signals pretty early. Okay, that's enough about me and Multiple. Let's get into the meat of this. Um, so once we started building this community, we began to see some patterns. This is where like founders were clustering and capital was flowing. And here's a snapshot of what that looks like. And it might be tough to read, but I'll talk through it. So don't stress. Um, EdTech is definitely still kind of the dominant market within autism tech. It makes up about a third of all the tools that we're seeing. Next, we see like therapeutics, diagnostics tools at roughly 19%. And then there's a cluster around workforce tools, communication, care navigation tools, each of those sitting at roughly 15%, kind of respectively. And then on the back end of that, we're also seeing executive functioning tools and data collection tools at 7 and like 4% respectively. So point here is that all of these kind of showcase that we are seeing technology diversify fast, and we're moving away from like single use apps to a more complete ecosystem that's supporting, education, health, daily use, all of the things that an autistic individual goes through day to day. Um, Here's kind of an interesting insight. So that was the current landscape. And there's definitely a lot of activity across categories, but it's still pretty heavily fragmented. And one thing that fragmentation causes is that really there's this enormous demand, but a lot of people, frankly, aren't using these products. That's what we're calling a non-consuming market. Basically, what that means is that there are millions of people who want these solutions, but they can't access them. Mostly because they're either hard to find, too expensive, too fragmented to fit into the daily life, which is frustrating because just in the US, there's over 25 million families, 500,000 self-advocates, and 1 million people or professionals who are really in this space. And they need a lot of tools, communication, care, learning, but most of them aren't really buying things. So the opportunity, maybe to round this out, is it's not about creating demand, it's just about removing friction if you're building in the space, which maybe brings me to my next point. When we see that kind of gap, strong market signals but low adoption, kind of forced us to look a little bit deeper. And so after doing this accelerating for 4 years of autism tech, there are a few lessons I want to call out in terms of what we've learned from being in the space. First is that adoption really happens when products are designed for the end user first. So if it's a parent, teacher, or self-advocate, and they can't figure out the product in like 30 seconds, it's really hard to get it like to be sticky, no matter how hard or how good your kind of like institutional partnerships are. The second is really like models with consumerizable kind of models are outperforming the others. So that means if it's like B2B to C or like prosumer, those are the kind of products that are getting traction quicker. The companies that are seeing the end users as their customers, even if they aren't the ones paying, those are ones that are just going to grow faster. And the last thing I want to call out on this slide is that distribution is king. This is probably true in most kind of startup ecosystems, but really in autism tech, it's a big deal. Institutional sales cycles, they just take like 18 to 36 months. The winners are the ones that are finding shortcuts to get the product in the consumer's hands. It doesn't mean they're fully D2C necessarily, but they're doing interesting things to do like pilots or employer partnerships that, again, just get the product in the end user's hands. Um, and the last thing I want to talk about here is just a few gaps in innovations that we're seeing. I won't talk through each one of these, but I'll highlight a few. So the first big one is that most of today's tools are actually designed for autistic people who are kind of lower on the support needs spectrum. But that leaves a huge gap for the non-speaking individuals or those who require more intensive supports. So there's a huge room, a lot of room to innovate there. The second, as you all probably know, AI, and specifically personalization. So we've really only scratched the surface of how AI can tailor experiences, whether it be with adaptive learning, kind of like what Sirica does, or just environments on like emotion recognition or communications. This is really the next wave that I think we're going to see a lot of innovation happen. And the last thing I'll call out is that there's a huge gap in kind of like workforce and caregiver supply. One of the biggest bottlenecks actually isn't tech here, it's just people. So tools that can help train or retain or even augment caregivers, I think they're going to be pretty critical to opening up more supply and help in the future. So I'll wrap up with this. We've been seeing a ton of progress, a lot of founders building in the space, a lot of investors playing in the space. It's been quite hot lately, but we still have a long way to go. So I just appreciate you all giving me the opportunity to share a little bit about what Multiple does. And if anybody wants to connect, we can share my email or LinkedIn or whatever. I can put it in the chat. And I'd love to talk to you all after this.
Great. Thank you very much, Keevin.
No problem.